Alright, so this is going to be a spoiler review for the Zach Cregger 2025 mystery horror film, Weapons. A lot of people seem to like this film. Wikipedia calls critically acclaimed movie. Zach Cregger is a master of horror, one critic said. Another person said masterful work. It's got like an 8 on IMDb. Positive review on RogerEbert.com, high scores on Rotten Tomatoes all around. So I feel like I have to defend why I didn't like this film, and now that I can go into the details of spoilers, I'll be able to be unburdened as I explain my piece of why I gave Weapons a 0 out of 10. So Weapons, if you're unfamiliar, is the story of 17 children who left their houses at 2:17 a.m. in the middle of the night on a Wednesday night, I believe. And the community has been shocked because it's been a month with no leads. The police are stumped, the feds are stumped. The only outstanding anomaly, the outstanding elements to this anomaly is Justine Gandy. They're all from one class. She's the teacher, so it's kind of suspicious. Also, one of the children didn't disappear. His name's Alex. So she's kind of like the town pariah now. People don't want to talk to her. They don't want her to work at the school. They're going to just let her stay on the health benefits. Her boss, Principal Marcus, he's a really nice guy, played by Benedict Wong, one of the more standouts of the film. So she's kind of got alcoholism, and she ends up contacting an old friend of hers named Paul. He's a police officer. Now maybe they used to bait or bang, but he sleeps with her, and she drops him off, and then she falls asleep because she gets obsessed with Alex because he's the last remaining child. And then we end the first sort of phase with Alex's mother snipping a piece of hair from Justine's head. And this movie decides to do a mortal sin, something that I didn't like, is perspective swapping. So if I'm going to also be a spoiler for the movie Barbarian. So keep that in mind too. In Barbarian, they do the perspective swaps twice. So in Barbarian, it's about a woman going to an Airbnb, and there's already a man there named Keith, and double booked. She doesn't want to stay in her car overnight. So he says, I'll let you in so you can at least use the Wi-Fi. You can find a new hotel or Airbnb. There's a convention in town, so she's stuck. He's a gentleman and offers her the bedroom with the lock, and he'll sleep on the couch. So that's the first sort of chunk of this movie. She gets locked in the basement. She escapes, but then he goes in and gets attacked by a big inbred monster creature. The movie then shifts to AJ. Does a perspective swap about I like to say about maybe halfway during the film, or maybe 30 minutes in. AJ is an actor who's got a lawsuit because of allegations, so he's going to need money for lawyers, so he decides to sell his Airbnb or see if he can sell it. So he goes to the Airbnb. He also gets attacked by the monster when he goes into the basement, and the two of them basically have to team up to escape. While they're doing that, though, they do another perspective swap at the end to the serial kidnapper who kidnapped women and then raised their inbred babies, and then maybe raped them, and then they just kept this cycle going on until the woman got really large and monstrous. And then they have to escape, and they escape with the help of a homeless man, and then they have a finale outside the house in the broken neighborhood. So the perspective swaps in Barbarian, they didn't really bother me that much. I did because, 30 minutes in, you've been waiting, the tension builds, and then it just sort of ends. It almost feels like you're reading one of those thriller novels. If you know, there's like a lot of modern day thriller novels where they'll jump back between two perspectives, or they'll jump back between timelines, like before, 5 years ago, present day. And whenever the movie starts to whenever the book starts to get a little stale, they'll jump back into a different perspective. Or sometimes they have to swap perspectives for just one page so they can go back to the other one. And Barbarian kind of cheats and does the same thing. The whole backstory of the actor and his allegations is trying to play into the whole sexual sort of theme that Zach Cregger is trying to include. The beginning of the film, I think her name's Rose. Rose basically has to be careful of this Keith guy because she's not sure if he's a killer or he's like, trying to get her or whatever, and he does everything he can to be a gentleman, like give her the bedroom with the lock, and they share wine, but he only opens it in front of her because it's left there by the owner. And I guess that AJ's supposed to be like evil because he's allegations or something. See, that's the thing. The movie doesn't have much of a theme. But either way, they jump to him and they focus on him a lot. And it feels like filler. They didn't have to do that much backstory for AJ. I mean, Justin Long probably appreciates it for his character, but it definitely feels like it inflates the runtime a lot. And then when they do the whole jumping into another perspective of the serial killer, it gives you the sort of a backstory of how the woman came to be when they watch the tapes or whatever. So that one's kind of needed, but they sort of were indulgent in terms of how much screen time AJ got before he gets to the Airbnb. And that's, I think, Weapons' biggest fatal flaw. It does 6 perspective swaps, and then, you know, after the first couple, you're like, okay, we're kind of like retreading the same material. They're just starting to repeat information. For me, that kills pacing. It just absolutely saps the life right out of it. The first segment is Justine, her hair gets taken. Then we swap to Matthew's dad. He's basically a construction man or something, and he's having a hard time. He's doing his own little investigation. Because we're following him, we get to find out who vandalized your car. And it doesn't really matter. Like, who cares? Like, I don't care about. And then he has a weird dream. Both of them have weird dreams. And honestly, the 2 dreams were just basically filler. They're not filler. They're basically just a way to keep you entertained because the movie would be boring without it. And they feel cheap and included just to sort of keep you on your toes so you don't fall asleep or want to leave the film. And that's bad. That's bad for the whole film. If you've only got like 2 action sequences, like the ending and the gas station scene, and it feels like they're chopping up the narrative just to get to those and sort of spread things out and sort of kind of like wait for time in a way of sorts, and they kind of are, because they end Paul's perspective by them getting attacked, and then they cut that short, and then we jump to another perspective. Paul, I believe, or is it Mark? I think it's Marcus. And you find out how he got attacked. And in Marcus's like sort of segment, you get to find out what's going on, who the villain is. It's Gladys. Gladys is a woman who had cancer. She showed up at Alex's house. She's family. So basically she's got cancer, but she's also got a master of magic or voodoo, basically. She controls Alex's parents. However, it doesn't cure her cancer. So she decides to get Alex to help him. She asks Alex to help her get items from all of the students to suck their life energy or something to cure her cancer, and that's why the kids disappeared. So for Marcus's segment, he's having lunch with his partner on a Saturday, and she shows up and gets her way into the house, asks for a bowl of water, and then she snips some hair off of the partner, and that invokes a ritual where she bleeds into a thorn and snaps it, and then Marcus loses his crap and then attacks his own partner in a frenzy. And then she puts one of Justine's hairs on the thorn and does the same thing. So Marcus runs across town literally to go zero in and kill her, but he gets hit by a car during the chase. And that's like a really great highlight of the film. You know, this frenzied attack is really awesome. It's well choreographed. There's a football tackle into a drink fridge. There's some good gore. But, you know, in order to get to this set piece, you'd had to wait like almost an hour to get to it. And it's just jumping back and forth, and then they swap to Paul and the junkie, James, and the 2 of them have this whole thing. You didn't really need to have them have backstory. I don't care about Paul's father. I don't care about the addiction stuff. It just really seemed threadbare. I mean, obviously they're the antagonists of the film, but you don't really need to give them a whole 15 minutes of backstory each, man. I just felt like they were padding for time. If they were to maybe be less indulgent with the flashbacks and perspective swaps, the movie would be a good, 20 to 30 minutes shorter. It'd be a more tight narrative. Instead, it's drawn out and bloated. And then we swap to another perspective of Alex, and we find out how and why his aunt's doing all this stuff. And then it really doesn't matter because essentially the main characters, Justine and the dad, show up at the house and they fight the junkie and the cop, and very entertaining sort of fight. And then Alex is able to steal the thorn and basically get away from his parents enough to get a single hair from Gladys's wig and then sets the kids on her, because I'm guessing the kids are connected to her because she's stealing their life force or something. That's not explained in the film. But essentially, the kids chase her and they literally smash through like 3 or 4 houses before they finally get to her. You know, she's got a lot of vitality because she stole their life force, I guess, but it's like a really cartoonish and silly, goofy chase scene. You know, she should have easily tripped by now. Why are all these houses open? It's really weird, you know, especially with 17 kids missing. You would assume that there's something wrong and you wouldn't have your just houses open all the time, but it makes the chase more interesting. But it feels like a bad commercial, like some SNL parody or something, where the kids want some ridiculous candy or something that the grandma has. And Gladys gets literally torn apart, and it saves Justine and the dad from being killed, and then the movie ends. I mean, there's a little girl that narrates a cover-up at the beginning of the film, and then the movie repeats corruption later as like a theme, but they didn't need to. And then they added in the fact that Paul's dad is the chief of police. And the thing with the perspective swaps is they always repeat something. You know, like they find out, oh, it's the dad vandalized Justine's car. And then, you know, it's like, we didn't need to know that. And then they repeat something else every time they do these little swaps, like Marcus at the grocery store, and to reveal that, you know, some of the perspective swaps are essential. Like Marcus, his allows us to see who the villain is, how she operates, his partner, and why he attacked. But we don't need the perspectives of the cop or the junkie, him trying to sell stuff at the pawn shop. It just feels like filler. I mean, it really is. And I kind of feel like Zach Cregger, he does have the sort of intensity and gore down for his films, but he really doesn't know much about character development or crafting a whole narrative together. He seems to have a weakness for just jumping into another sort of side tangent in order to buy time. It's kind of like trying to tell a good story, and instead of getting to the button, you kind of like keep delaying it to be like, oh yeah, and then his mom was also terrible, and then this happened, and then oh yeah, I also forgot to put up with gas, and then, you know, you just sort of like that feels like that for 2 full hours. So it's kind of like annoying. And if this is going to be like one of his storytelling techniques that he does in every film from now on, then I can't watch any more of his films, because I just don't like it. It feels cheap. It feels amateurish. Other people dug it. I mean, for example, a movie like Strange Darling does the same thing, but the narrative is part of that film to hide the story details. And you know, one small slip, it doesn't work, you know, so the narrative is done in a very unique, specific way, and the marketing also didn't, you know, give you the twist away and everything. But for Weapons, it just feels like a waste of time. You're trying to just stall for time, so the movie is a little bit longer than it needs to be, when in reality it should be a quick, short, mean 90-minute thriller about voodoo. It shouldn't be about like finding out the backstories of all these different things and blah, blah, blah. It's like no one cares. And also, you know, the little girl narrating kind of gives away half the movie, that like, you know, the town figured it out, or they covered it up or whatever, and it doesn't really give us a happy ending really for all these kids anyway, because they're all comatose or whatever, because they had their life force sucked out of them. But either way, the movie, I just felt it was really bad, because another aspect I want to complain about is the lack of actual theme. Barbarian tried to have this sort of elevated horror theme of like, women need to be afraid of men or be careful of men. It's unfair for them because they're always in danger when they're in a new environment or something. And they were trying to like play that up with the whole, is Keith a good guy or a bad guy? You know, maybe he's a serial killer or something. He's going to get her. He's going to put her in the basement with other women or something. And then the movie quickly throws that out the window because Keith is attacked and killed anyway. And then that's not really sort of, I mean, thematically relevant with AJ, because it's not like you see him in action doing bad stuff to women. The movie just tells you that he did something bad, and it doesn't really play into the actual theme. I mean, I guess there is a theme of like the serial killer or kidnapper, he would like pretend to be a maintenance man or something and prey on women in the 50s or something, or the 60s, and get in and attack them, or leave a window open and then come back and get them later. But that's not really thematic. And then like there's a whole thing going on with AJ not being a good man because he tries to sacrifice Rose near the end or something. And it feels like it feels like juggling. It feels like you really want to make the movie more elevated than just a monster inbred creature in the basement. So you're trying to play around with theme and trying to be like, well, if I make this character unlikable, maybe there can be a redemption arc. But then there's not really, because it's thrown out the window. Weapons has this too. Apparently the kids disappearing is an allegory for school shooting, but it's definitely not really explored in any meaningful way, because there's like a big gun in a dream sequence, I guess. But it really, I didn't catch that at all because I don't live in America. But also another theme of addiction. Everyone's addicted to something except for maybe the dad. And it really didn't really play into the whole thing. You know, the main villain is a voodoo lady. What does addiction have to do with that? Making everyone an addict doesn't do anything. It doesn't add anything. It's not thematically relevant is what I'm saying. You know, you can have a character just be like, I do heroin, and he mentions it, but it doesn't affect the bank heist at all. Then why does he include that in there? And Zach Cregger seems to do this a lot, where he just has a weird quirk thrown in for no reason to seem elevated, but it's not. And it comes off as really pretentious, because if it doesn't really have any relevance to the rest of the movie, why are you including it just for the hell of it? You know, why does it matter that 4 or 5 of the main characters have addiction problems? Like, is it going to hinder them in the movie, or is it going to do something that bad later? If it really doesn't, then like it really doesn't matter. Same for Barbarian. Like at the beginning of the movie, she's all like scared of Keith and she doesn't want to stay, but he turns out to be a nice guy, so it's like everything's fine. But if she were to stay in her car for the whole movie, she'd be fine. And I guess that kind of plays into the whole women should be careful about stuff because there's a serial kidnapper that led to an inbred baby creature, and the inbred daughter like kidnaps people, but it doesn't really play in, you know, it doesn't really mesh well together is what I'm saying. So the whole school shooting allegory or addiction thing doesn't really play into a woman sucking the life out of kids with voodoo magic, or, you know, they're really disjointed, and I don't like that. And I do enjoy some aspects of Weapons. I really like the cinematography for when Justine's going into the liquor store and it builds up into an attack scene by Donna. And there's also a part of the chase scene, one of the kids were following a POV shot through several houses. That's really effective. I really like Benedict Wong. He plays like the psycho so well because he's just like so manic. He doesn't blink. He probably had to practice that. And the whole gas station scene's amazing because they got the big football tackle or whatever. And then the gore scene was great, but you know, little nuggets of great stuff and like a full 2-hour movie that sucks doesn't redeem for me. You know, I was a little bit entertained in moments, but that's probably one of the reasons why I don't classify this film as a cinematic atrocity. There's one sequence in this film that actually made me laugh, like belly laugh, like harder than I've probably laughed in a long time, in the final fight sequence where the cop Paul is attacking Justine in the kitchen, and then the dad is fighting the junkie, and the dad keeps like judo throwing this junkie, and he just keeps getting up. He gets up like 8 times, and after the 5th time it just got funny because he's, you know, he's acting so like weird, but it's funny because it's not that scary. It's more of a frightening sort of like, these things are trying to grab me. It's more scary for her because she's not strong and she's fighting a grown man. The big dad throwing around the skinny junkie's hilarious. And it's not supposed to be funny, I don't think, but even if it was, the whole movie's not funny. Only like that last part and maybe some parts in the middle with the whole police thing. So the movie doesn't qualify as a cinematic atrocity in my opinion. It's just a really, you know, awkward horror film with some unintentional black comedy, a lot of bad pacing, some good technical details, good cast that performs well. But I kind of feel like if they were to maybe tighten this movie to closer to 90 minutes, get less good actors and have it, you know, just be more of a mystery. Don't hop around so much and give us backstories. Don't use title cards. You could have just made this a more lean, mean, weird sort of just like thriller movie with rampaging people running around, you know. Like, I think a lot of people complain about 28 years later as well because the Samson creature was easily dispatched too easily. Overall, that's my spoiler review of Weapons. It's still a 0 out of 10. I probably won't watch it again. I don't like it, and that's it.